Hello, welcome to the Music Education Panel live stream. This is the first time ever for the CES to engage in a discussion with music. And we wanted to lean on the passion people have for the musical art and the connection between music and interdisciplinary education. We have initiated this event and invited musicians and educators from China and other countries, universities and colleges to share with you and have an interesting discussion. I am from the Berklee College of Music. I am Yang. I am Amy from the Harvard School of Education. Everyone, hello. I am Celine. I am also from the Harvard School of Education. So the guest of this event came from China, the United States, and Australia, and the whole forum is going to be bilingual in both Chinese and English. And the whole process, we have simultaneous interpretation, and the directors will speak Chinese and ask questions in English when necessary. Today, we have wonderful guests joining us. We have Beth. Can you say hi to everyone?
Zhangguo. Hi, I'm Beth Denish. Glad to be here.
Our second group of speakers are two-set violin, Brett Young and Eddie Chen. They're a classical violin duo that is taking the internet by storm. We're pleased to be here. Greetings. Our next speaker is Lucy Law, founder of Law Music Education, former director of strategic consulting at Accenture's Global Management. Hello, I am Lucy Law. Our fourth speaker is Julia Glenn, violinist and chamber musician, Faculty of Violin and Musical Theory at Tianjin Juilliard School. So in today's panel, we're going to invite the four panelists to share their perspectives in turn and then discuss some of the hot issues. Today, they will discuss the nature of music education, its role in the current educational environment, and also discuss its role in children's music education, education in Chinese, American music schools, music and general education, and internet music promotion. All right, thank you, Yang. First of all, we'll give the floor to Ms. Lucy Law. She graduated from Tsinghua University and worked as a strategic consulting director in the consulting industry for many years. However, because of her love for music since childhood and as a chorus conductor all the year round, he founded Law Conductor Music Education in 2010 and is the founder of family-oriented, in-depth music education model. I have also had the fortune to read her book, How Children Learn Music. We thank her for joining our panel, and the floor is handed over to you. Thank you. All right, thank you, Celine. The theme of this year's topic, or the theme of this year's discussion would be the returning and renewing music education for lifelong learning. As we know, from 600 years BC, we have seen the reference to music in the Confucius traditions. And also in the West, we have the equivalent mentioning of music in ancient Greek education. So the aesthetics-driven music education has always been the common goal of music education, but it's abstract. How do we change an abstract aesthetics goal to something that is a pedagogy and something that is specific? We have seen research done in this area, and there were three major discoveries. One is for classical music to come into children's lives, so it becomes a habit for them to appreciate and create beauty. And secondly, using the abstract beauty of music to push for the building of core competences, including logic, language, listening, and communication. And thirdly, music can help children, enable them to go into explorations of knowledge acquisition in a disciplinary manner. Next page. These are by no means new ideas. We have seen a lot of successes from previous renowned scholars. We can see music education had very deeply influenced their great success. We have President Truman, we have Dr. Chen, we have Einstein, and they were all great beneficiaries of music education. So when we talk about this, it is not a light topic. We talk about the returning and renewing of music education. So today's education, their purpose had already deviated from that original ambition or aspiration. The music education we see are mostly skill-oriented. It is a very singular subjective education. And what are we actually missing as we implement teaching pedagogies like that? The ability to read a music score sheet, to play an instrument. Behind all of these superficial skills, there's actually a lot of enigma behind it. For example, the mathematics, the logic, the critical thinking, the history, language, philosophy, and also its interconnections and interactions with visual arts and literature. All of these can be expanded in the education in cognition, and also the core competence that is now being promoted. For example, empathy, critical thinking, problem-solving abilities, communication, listening, leadership, cooperation. All of these core competences can find a way for them to be taught to the children through music education, but we're actually missing that. How can we move away from the skill-oriented teaching of music? When we look at the initial or the original aspiration of music education, we must understand that it can be something that instills emotions into our daily lives. It is a key to interdisciplinary learning, and it is an enabler to our children. So in my exploration in innovative English music education, I have always based my thinking in this cone shape. So the bottom of this cone, which is a circle, it is something that talks about the ability of music to help children to develop socially. So me, the red dot in the middle, will begin to develop socially. So I become a part of a family, and then larger to a community, to a society, and to the world and the universe. And secondly, the child will begin to build a cognitive understanding of the physical world. And so they will begin to have understanding in science, in humanities, and in art. And this helps the child to begin his or her own thinking of this more abstract world. And so we're actually building this cone-shaped space for cognition. And the learning will be a spiral. The child will spiral up towards his or her growth and development, and where his or her understanding for science, art, and humanities will meet at the apex. So we're actually looking at these different things through different perspectives, but we're actually asking the same question, which is our understanding for ourselves and the physical and metaphysical world we live in. And music is the best ladder for us to climb that cognition journey. And so under the guidance of this system, we were able to provide the children with a series of very rich formulations of teaching. For example, on top of Himalayas, on the Himalaya platform, we have a video audio program. We have a children's choir. We have children's musical classes. And we also have adult parent courses and teacher training courses. And so we have now provided full coverage of music education for people from 0 years of age to 99 years of age. And we correct ourselves in the way. And we interact with the recipient of the language, and we have produced a series of innovative courses. For example, for older children, we have classes where music teaches you how to write. So we can actually expand our understanding of a piece of music into an article. How a piece of music describes a person, how music can be likened to poetry. All of this will help the children to understand that writing or creative writing is nothing boring, and you can actually have a lot of intricate details coming from the music. And we can help them understand classical opera by bringing them lessons on these opera. And then we have other classes, such as combining Bach music to mathematics. We have, on invitation of the National Performance Arts Center, to have these on-site classes where we have workshops that last for 90 minutes. The children would come and participate and join in. They would sing and dance, and they would now have a very good understanding of these traditional operas. And with that knowledge, they go into the theater and they enjoy the opera to a manifold pleasure. And we also have a lot of public benefit programs. We tell the children why would they sing? What sort of emotions do singing bring to them? Their passion to music is something that would evaluate the effectiveness of our teaching. And finally, we have some next steps. For our class, we now have a 16 session class that has now been donated to a charity organization to be rolled out across the country. And we hope this would help promote education equity. And our cross-Pacific and cross-Atlantic chorus collaboration is a project where children's choirs associated to our music society. This would actually promote cross-border cultural exchanges, and we will help our children to become young musicians, but also responsible members of the society. So today we're here talking about the original aspirations and innovation of music education. Music education itself is only a carrier. We wanted to enable children to grow up in a happy and productive way. They would start with music, but they will go beyond the scope of music. Every professional, educator, and every parent would use it to provide nutrition to that seed, so it would blossom into the future. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Law, for those wonderful sharings. You talked about the choir and the other interesting classes, and we would have more detailed questions regarding those later on in the roundtable. Next, I am going to introduce to you Julia Glenn. She was born in Boston, and she speaks fluent Chinese, and she's a violinist. She has received classical music education in wonderful conservatories and academies, and I have had the great fortune of watching her in action and enjoyed her wonderful performance. She is now teaching violin and music theory as faculty member in the pre-college and graduate department of the Tianjin Juilliard School. What sort of recommendations would she give to the young students? The floor is yours. Well, thank you very much, Serene. It is my great pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you some of the ideas I believe are very important. First of all, I would like to talk about how we understand that today's world is changing more at a faster rate every day, and it is becoming bigger and bigger. And there are short-term and long-term changes that we must pay attention to. And so if we close our doors and try to create something within in isolation, we can't really achieve success. And this is also true in music education. You can't just learn music either. You can't put all your focus on music. You have to think about other issues.
Engagement as global citizens. 下一页. So what I argue for is that music can be part of this liberal used approach to
Julia 老师可能 experience 一些 audio 的connection 问题，我们稍等一下。
Is it something I'm doing? Okay.
No, please carry on, please. That was just a short split with the audio, but feel free to carry on. Thank you.
好像没开，你怎么开呢？需要开吗？
没问题，现在你的声音是没问题的，可以往下进
I'm
行。
not sure if it's on or not actually.
It's on, it's on. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Let me try this. 这样好一点吗？
很好。
好 ，OK， 谢谢。So basically what I'm arguing for is music within this liberal arts infused approach. So not doing something that's only about music. And some of the questions that I want to talk about today are, what defines a valuable life? What defines a legitimate life? What are these terms? What do they actually mean? And then very importantly, what is purpose? How do we define purpose? How to create purpose and maintain purpose? 刚才罗老师谈到了，就说得非常精彩，非常深刻。
So Ms. Law was talking about this in a very profound and outstanding way. And I understand that after the education process had completed,
stage and have questions that we deal with throughout our lives. 下一页。我先更具体的说一下这个所谓这个
in more details about liberal arts infused approach. It is a little difficult to translate into Chinese because it is not just about arts education.
是 curiosity 好奇心超级重要，对吧？没有好奇心，你怎么能？So
curiosity is extremely important. You can't develop without curiosity.
So no matter what you have learned, if you always think that it's right, then you will never find more beauty and you will never get more ideas than that. 这些有很多里面罗老师已经说到了。
So many things have already been touched upon by Lucy.
Yes, as well as respect for diversity of fields. So not just knowledge about these other fields, but deep respect for them and curiosity for working together with them. 最后呢，就是了解我们这个世界是。
And finally, we need to understand that today's world is changing all the time, and life is changing all the time.
But the people now are different, and the needs are different. So everything has to be proactively handled. All of these can lead to increasing diversity of backgrounds and perspectives. 下一页. Yeah, and one other important thing I mentioned is not just restricted to liberal arts schools, this kind of mindset, right? You don't have to go to liberal arts school. You could go to woodworking school. You could go to music school. You could go, you could work in the nail salon, whatever. But this mindset can be helpful in any walk of life. And I'd like to also mention two mindsets that I often see, both in China and America, that to me potentially could carry some risks. So one is 罗老师刚才说到的这个
was mentioned by Lucy in one aspect, the very specialized music education, the career path.
几乎是没有选择，一般来说是父母
You don't have a choice. You start from a very young age. Your parents decide that for you. And so your career has been decided for you.
Really high level, and it's got a lot of benefits. You can have deep immersion in your field. But the two things that are dangerous about it to me, at first, we cannot interact as much with other fields, so we can't have that fruitful area. And then the other thing is that we lack indeterminacy, right? 未确定的. Indeterminacy is one of the most important things that we have as artists and as human beings. Okay. The second approach that I try to stay away from is this, what I call multi-talented, high achiever, resume padding, I can do everything kind of approach. And usually we find this in high pressure, high profile settings, both in America and in China. So again, this can lead to incredible level of achievement, incredible level of contribution and development. But the danger with it is that we can start to take our self-worth and equate it with something like a degree or a competition or a piece of paper or this or that. And so our sense of ourselves is tied into these external things which actually don't mean so much in the end. 下一页. Thank you. So these are some of the core values 的核心的价值，就是我个人的，然后不只是预科生或者研究生，我们都会进行就是look for these values, right? So the first one is to value the process and approach over outcome, right? So process is 95% of what we do. So if we don't have a love and a curiosity for the process, then we lose a sense of why we're doing it, right? So untying our sense of self-worth from ultimately short-term external markers. Second core value, always questioning your definitions of things, right? What is success? What do you think success is? What do you think other people think success is? Why do you care? Which one do you care about, right? What is legitimacy? What makes one life more legitimate than another life? And what are you judging your own legitimacy on? Purpose. How fixed is our purpose? Value, where does value come from? All of these things ultimately are prescribed, right? They're not real. We make them and we bring them. So therefore we need to question them and work with them. Third core value, which I love to kind of play with, is think and care about things that maybe don't matter, right? Ask questions that have no connection to your field, to your culture, to your country. And you will find that actually it does matter, right? How can you find a solution to it? How can you put that into your own approach within your own field? And then the last core value is delighting in indeterminacy. Our world now, we like to have a lot of fixed things, a lot of determinacy, right? Okay, I'm going to order this and in 30 minutes it will arrive, you know. Oh, I'm overweight and I'm going to do this exercise program and in 1 month it will be fixed. You know, oh, I want to learn this. In 3 years I've learned it and it's done and it's determined. But actually, even this is false, right? Determinacy is very, you know, itself can be questioned. So, and within that arena of indeterminacy, that's where we can thrive as human beings. That's where we can thrive as artists. Next page, please. So the last thing I just want to mention, and this has just been a very general kind of talk today because of the time limitations, but I read this wonderful novel recently by Ishiguro. Probably some of you have read some of his stuff. He's one of the greatest English language novelists of our time, I believe. And he deals with a lot of questions about humans and what makes us human, right? So of course, you know, your emotional footprint, your ability to be missed, questions of memories, he deals with that a lot, right? With artificial intelligence versus humans. But to me, the two last things on this list here are really important in terms of guiding our own lives. One, the ability to reflect and create things within indeterminacy, right? And then the last item on this list, because our purpose is self-prescribed and ever flexible, because of that, we are immune to obsolescence, right? We are not created to have an express purpose like a machine. And so being aware of that and guiding your own purpose within the shifting world, that's one of the greatest things we can do as educators, as artists, as humans. So 今天就讲到这里，谢谢啊。
That is all for today. Thank you. Thank you, Julia, for the wonderful sharing. And please allow me to introduce our next speaker, Beth Dennis, who's an American composer and also a professor of composition at Berklee College of Music. And she teaches music composition and theory in many ensembles and organizations that have awarded the niche, including the Chamber Orchestra, Kremlin, Moscow, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts with the Philadelphia, and then Classical Symphony. And I used to have the benefit of learning with Professor Denise, and really have been impressed, and I'm still impressed by her music every day. And so now the floor is yours, Beth.
Thank you. It is a thrill to be here with you all today. Thank you for coming. And thank you to Serene, Amy, Yang for inviting me to the 13th China Education Symposium's Music Education panel. It has been a pleasure working with Serene and Yang in preparation for today's sharing and discussion, and I'm honored to share this panel with two-set violin duo Brett Yang and Eddie Chen, Lucy Lua, and Julia Glenn. Next slide, please. Oh, that is the slide. No, go back one slide, please. Thank you. Okay. So it's been my privilege to teach at Berklee College of Music in Boston for over 20 years. And I've worked with many different types of students, from the focused, goal-driven iconoclast to the curious, daydreaming wanderer. Within each student exists the desire to understand more through creative expression. Sometimes that seed of yearning is hidden from the teacher underneath the defensiveness of uncertainty, a doubting of self, or even worse, a closed mind from past experiences of negativity in the classroom, ensemble lab, or lesson studio. So finding the crack in the wall, the key to open the door, these are the mysteries of teaching that can be so rewarding when one prioritizes the student over the curriculum. Next slide, please. Teaching is not about the teacher. Teaching is about the student. When one focuses on the student's current awareness or lack thereof regarding the lesson at hand, then in my experience, the path for bringing the learning to the student is revealed. It's like solving a mystery. We just have to be aware of the clues from the students along the way. Next slide. As teachers, we must first come to the class, rehearsal, or lesson with a mastery of the material. That's the baseline. From this position, and only from this position, can we effectively direct our attention to the student. This approach allows us to work playfully and simultaneously with deep nuance. This pedagogical adventure draws the student into a shared game of discovery. When we engage with the student in their current learning position, rather than where we think that the student should be regarding learning experience, then we can draw them into the shared activity. Music education is not passive. It demands participation from both sides of the desk. The teacher brings the student into a joint ownership position. Then the student's curiosity to understand the material is self-generated. So customizing one's teaching approach for each student optimizes that student's learning potential. And when the student masters the lesson, this accomplishment rewards, we get something back, the teacher's efforts. Thank you. Next slide, please. And then how can we effectively direct that curiosity, perhaps excitement, so that they do initiate the effort necessary to obtain their own mastery of the course material? We do this by being excited about the curriculum material itself. In modeling our individual ownership of the learning, we open our pedagogical arms, as it were, inviting them in, but not demanding acquiescence. The choice to learn is theirs, but we can influence this decision through our own enthusiasm. When we respect the student's right to choose learning, they are more likely to turn toward us rather than away from us. Next slide, please. So this pedagogical approach moves the prize from getting an A in the class to creating individual motivation for the aha moment. The outcome of the joint learning activity, when successfully employed, creates self-ownership on the student's part. The more discreetly, invisibly, we can nudge them into their own aha moment, the higher the level of self-accomplishment. The student's takeaway then includes the ability to self-navigate the learning process. In this model of teaching, when self-initiative nurtures their creativity, the students themselves develop a behavioral habit that influences a lifelong learner's own way of being, growing, and embracing so much more of what life has to offer, even outside of the practice room, as Julie was just talking about. Thank you. Next slide. So much more can be accomplished when we meet the student on their terms rather than our own. For example, I was invited to author an online course about counterpoint. Counterpoint is not every contemporary musician's favorite subject. It has often been, unfortunately, suffered as the bitter pill one has to take to get the degree. However, Berkeley Online asked me to write a course for their students, specifically for the contemporary musician or popular musician. As a student-focused teacher, this led me on an amazing journey regarding pedagogy, course materials, and curriculum. Having taught on Berkeley campus for 10 years at this time when I was writing this new course, I already knew that many Berkeley students started their studies without a strong classical background. So I transformed a centuries-old pedagogy into a contemporary practice that was built on connecting music from the past 800 years with the music of today. Separating the techniques of composing from the styles in which they emerged allows students to apply these techniques into their own styles and genres. This was highly rewarding to me as a teacher and has worked well for many students who have taken the course in these past 10 years. Next slide, please. Teaching as a practice develops our own growth as individuals, as well as the pedagogical skills to more effectively reach out to each student. Learning as a praxis more fully develops the individual. When we become lifelong learners, our ability to seek out, consider, and grow from new ideas, opportunities, and collaborations is greatly enhanced. Learning and teaching cohabitate. Presenting the same material over and over again in the same way takes the life out of teaching. Learn new things. Step out of your own comfort zone. As a student-centered teacher, I felt compelled to address the student as a whole person. It is not only the musical skills that each student must master, but it is also their survival and hopefully their success as a participant in the music industry. In particular, the discrimination and prejudice that female musicians, especially instrumentalists, producers, and recording engineers face propelled me to address these issues in the classroom. Next slide, please. So I wrote a sociology course, Berkeley allowed me, it's wonderful, called Music, Gender, and Society. It has been running for 17 years and is updated at every semester, reflecting current trends and events in the music industry and society at large that affects our students and the emerging professional in the music industry. Through readings, screenings, guest speakers, and class discussions, our students are better prepared to participate successfully in our current musical culture and business. This course introduces musical genres, repertoire, composers, and performers that reflect and aspire various gender identities and expressions in society. Drawing on interdisciplinary discourse, this course provides a variety of sources regarding music and gender in society and facilitates discussion of these topics. Next slide, please. So teaching students to self-navigate learning allows them to more successfully create their own path or journey, both internally and as a growing musician, and externally in how they deal with their own career and interactions with other professionals in the music industry. Music education in particular includes behaviors, playing music, and experiences, playing music with others and for diverse audiences. When we as teachers apply pedagogies that create self-navigational responses, we also better prepare them to not only grow in their internal music world, but also to create their own external path in generating a valuable life. And I asked some of my composition students this last week if they wouldn't mind. I told them about the symposium and would you mind letting me take your picture? So here are some of my composition students from all over the world in this one class. And I was very happy that they let me share a picture of them in my presentation today. So thank you very much to be here and to share with you.
那感谢 Beth 精彩的分享。我相信其实刚刚的演讲
Thank you, Beth, for that wonderful presentation. I trust that many people, especially many educators, would see a lot of resonating ideas from what you said and provoke their thinking. Our next speakers actually has taken the internet by storm. You probably already have heard of them or watched their videos. We actually have the honor of inviting these two young musicians, from Two Set Violin. They were founded in 2014 by Eddie Chen and Brett Young. I was very hooked the first time I saw their content online. They're doing a great job and forever changing the landscape of classical music industry. Now the floor is yours. Greetings. I will be speaking Chinese, but our Chinese might not be that good. Sometimes we need to switch to English. So today, what we would like to share with you, we have heard from the wonderful speakers before us. They've talked about many things that are very interesting. What we also want to make our content interesting, and we would like to share with you our own experience as music learners. We have become musicians. We work in orchestras, and we're now content creators on the internet. The whole process of learning English and the things we have learned, and something that we find very special that we would like to share with you, so that we might shed a little bit of light on what value you can gain through learning of music. Can you understand me? Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I would like to share with you is, in my own experience, learning music could teach you how to become courageous enough to pursue your own colors, your true colors. What do I mean by that? When I was a young teenager, 13, 15 maybe, I first started learning. I was one of the children who were forced to pick up an instrument by my parents. I hated violin when I was little. I didn't want to practice. And I was told that I can't have dinner unless I play for 30 minutes. Oh, me too. I believe many people started that way. When I was about 14, 15, when I started to get in touch with many different types of music, different bands, different musicians, I all of a sudden found that I actually love the violin. I love the creation of music. And my mother is a very strict tiger mom, and she always wanted for me to become a doctor. And so when I was 17, she told to me, you have to take the entrance exam for the medical school. if you don't do that, I'll forbid you from learning more music, because music is only your excuse to shy away from the actual hard work and studying. And so I actually sit the exam, and I got recruited by medical school. So I told my mother, see, I've done it. I can get into medical school, but I really want to be a musician. I was actually shaking with fear when I was saying that, because I didn't want to make her angry or disappointed. That was the first experience I wanted to share with you. And the second one was when I was 21. I was about to graduate from university, and my violin teacher told me that I should go to another country to take a master's course, or perhaps pursue a PhD course. At that time, we were only just starting to set violin. Not a lot of people were watching us, but we have enjoyed it very, very much. We thought it was a great thing to be doing. So in that process, I have learned to become courageous enough and listen to myself, what I actually wanted to do at that stage. So I didn't go to another country to pursue further studies. I stayed for to sit violin. And I think that is the reason why today we are lucky enough to do something that we really want to do. But of course, people would say, perhaps if you wanted to become a musician, but I didn't have your level of success. I wanted to do YouTube. I want to be a YouTuber, but I don't have enough followers. What can I do? To me, the most important thing is like what Beth was saying in her presentation. A great teacher can actually allow the student to become inspired and be motivated to learn. And so in that process of my own learning, my entire life view has been changed. Every morning I wake up excited, knowing what I want to do. And I was brave enough to listen to myself, to what my heart was telling me. And I think that was the important life lesson musical education brought to me. Wow. What pressure to follow that act. My Chinese is not that good. You have to support me. So we're sharing with you our experience. Hard work and honest work are both very, very important. As we work in the workspace of content creators, in content, very important things are the things that we have learned. The first part was our learning of violin. We must practice, we must work hard. You go onto the stage, you play, people know how much you've practiced. And if you didn't practice, it was very obvious. Everyone would know, the audience would know, your teachers would know, your classmates would know. And that's a very important value that we have, dedication and diligence, and also honest work. How do you express your music? Two people came into the room. We apologize.
How honest is the work? Okay. 还有这到 content 里面的时候，内容里面就是说
And then when we talk about content, in the content landscape, a lot of our experience, there were many moments in which we need to make a choice between working hard in the honest way or taking the easy way out or taking the shortcut. And sometimes the shortcuts are really tempting. So our experience was, if we were going to make a video, if we wanted to perform, we must practice beforehand. We didn't work with an agency, an MCN agency. We wanted to do it ourselves and improve by ourselves. And there was a crossroad. There were many opportunities before us. Many MCN agencies come and approach us and say, we'll help you to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What do you want? Do you want collaboration? Do you want funding? We can support you. And in many aspects. We looked at their offer and we didn't think it was what we wanted to do. So this again brings me back to the initial idea of being passionate, hard work and honest work. How should I put this? It's difficult to make a decision in the face of temptation. Sometimes the offers are very incentivizing.
Most of the time, actually, every time we chose something that's
Every time
these two things, the reward is much better. 我换成英文了，
That's okay.
中文讲不出来。
It's more fulfilling.
It's more fulfilling. 心理里面比较 fulfilling.
So psychologically, we're much more fulfilled. Okay, I can jump in here. There has been several quite popular videos on our account. We were actually talking about some of the violinists who were not playing honest music. They say they are the fastest violin players, but they were not doing honest work. And the reason why these content become very popular is because deep down people can tell who are the fakes and who are the honest, hardworking musicians, people who care about their product, or people who are actually taking the shortcut. And we continue to emphasize that in music learning and in content creation, hard work and honest work are the very important values. Another anecdote, I don't know if I'm taking up too much time. There is something else we would like to share with you. We believe there's something that is very powerful about music. Music can bring people together. It has that special ability. For example, today you go to a new country, you don't know the people there. They have very different background, they have different race, they have different gender to yourself. But once you sit together with two other musicians, you have a quartet, impromptu, improvised, Mozart or something else. You don't speak the same language, but at that moment, you're able to communicate among each other and create resonance among the four of you using music. And that is a very important element to music. The reason why music is so important in today's world is its ability to help people to communicate and bring people together. And I believe that is the most important thing. And as we create internet videos, we have learned that again firsthand, because when we create this video, we would meet other people who are equally as passionate about music. We can form really exciting and inspiring things through those communication with the common language of music. And we believe those are the three things we have learned from our own experience, why music education is so important in today's world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to Sid for those wonderful insights you've shared with us. It makes you more courageous to pursue what you really want in your heart. A lot of these things you've shared with us resonate with us and are very, very powerful sentiments. People who have not yet followed the two Sid, please follow them on YouTube and Bilibili. And we thank our panelists for the wonderful insights they've shared with us. Ms. Law had shared with us her understanding of innovation in children's musical education. And Julia shared with us about the connection between classical music education to liberal arts education. And we have seen two sets talking to us about the challenges in this industry. And that what they learned from their own experience. And from Beth, we have heard from a composer with decades of experience, her love and care for every individual student. And we can see how the education of music can help people to pursue that brighter, more beautiful world. And so we would like to thank you all for helping us to understand the concepts more and share your own personal stories. We'll now go into the second half, which is the round table.
Discuss some of the most important issues in the industry and answer questions from the audience. So without further ado, let's move on to the first topic, the purpose of music education. Again, welcome all the panelists from the first session. Well, the first question has to do with the purpose of the music education. How do we view the utilitarianism of music education today? Where is the balance between utilitarianism and artistic purity in music education and learning? Well, we already heard about it on the purpose from Julia before. So Julia, what's your take on this?
好复杂的一个题目，我觉得
It's a very complicated question. I think all of us mentioned purpose in our presentations. I very much agree with what has been said. It is the teacher's responsibility to train students to think. I don't think you can be told about where your future path and direction is. This has to be created from within. From very early on, we need to give students examples of different kinds. For me, I started, to practice when I was 8. My mom in the beginning did not want me to learn violin, despite herself being a violinist. She did not know how to teach children. She wanted me to start with a piano. It's different from Brad and Freddie. I was never told specifically what I should learn. Well, that's good in a way. And it also bad because when I was in university, I just felt
believe it. I could have played octaves so much more in tune, right? Or something like this, right? But actually, it gave me the freedom to realize how little determinacy there is and how much responsibility I had to find my own beauty and find my own purpose. So this is something I try always to work on with my own students.
那其实接下来我想问 Beth， 因为 Beth 其实你面对的很多也是。
This question is for Beth. Beth, you work with the students quite often, and many of them are very specialized. So, what's your take on that? Utilitarianism versus artistic purity.
So it is respecting the student and seeing the student. If I have a purity in my purpose of teaching music, and the teaching is very, they need to be competent in the skill that I'm teaching, right? But if this is not their style of preference, if someone is, say, a hip hop artist and comes into my counterpoint class, what does counterpoint mean to hip hop? How can I respect what is of value to that student? And when I do that, I'm bringing them, we have a place to meet. And then I can talk about melodic independence and collage technique, and then it makes sense to them. And then the competency, the skills, the material can be applied even in their style of music, although it comes from our historical classical studies. So that's okay. That would be my response.
Yeah, Beth, I actually have a follow-up question. 我接下来就会用中文讲啊，但是我们其实
I'll switch to Chinese. Well, actually, Raj Braun, the previous Juilliard president, mentioned that and when an artist pursues a music career, on the one hand, just the pure arts that they want, on the other hand, is the market, or what it is expected from the market. It's kind of like a seesaw, but of course there is overlap. You've been teaching for so many years. Have you seen a situation where your students were challenged and were, struggling with this? And what's your recommendations for students who's at loss between these 2 points of the spectrum? Thank you.
So it does remind me of one particular student. I'm not sure I understood quite at the beginning of your question, but I think I got most of it. So I had a counterpoint student who very gifted musician, and he was up for an arranging job for a famous pop celebrity star. And he made these arrangements, and lots of other people were up for that job too. And he got it. And the pop celebrity star said, when I take out the different tracks on this arrangement that you've done, each one makes sense on its own. And so even though he learned counterpoint in a very traditional manner, he applied it to his popular arranging skills, and that set him apart from the other arrangers that were up for the same job. So classical music skills in many different aspects can help us regardless of what part of the industry we're involved in. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I actually want to throw this question to Brett and Eddie. What do you think?
I think I agree very much with what Julia and Beth have said, in the sense that, I don't know, it's finding purpose is one of those things that I think is so important to all of us, because it's how we navigate our everyday life and know who we are. And so I think I read a quote somewhere once where it's like, either the world will ask you who you are, and you can either answer, or the world will tell you who you are. And I don't necessarily think, oh, the world told you who you are, and in any way that's lesser. But it does bring to the question of whether we come into learning music because we were told to, because we were just in the education system and we've brought along, you got to learn your music theory, you got to practice your scales, and you have to play Bach this way. Or, and for some people that might be perfectly enjoyable and fine. But for others, they might enjoy discovering for themselves their purpose and their relationship to the music. And that's definitely been the case for myself, and I think Brett as well. Sure, we did go through the whole process of practicing our scales, and we're very grateful for it. But during this process, it gave us a lot of time to reflect, and especially when times got tough, I think times when, we practiced 5-6 hours a day for competition, and then we didn't go through, and that deep feeling of disappointment, but then you also don't want to give up music as a passion. And then those times really make you sit back and think with the pain, like, why am I doing this? Why do I love this? And I think if you can let that teach you about yourself and your relationship to music, then your purpose becomes stronger and it's so much more fulfilling. And you can also then be more open-minded and try to have your own creative interpretation of what it means to be a musician. And I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I see both Beth and Julia want to say something to your answer. So Beth?
I just saw Julia's hand up and I wanted to hear what she had to say too.
Okay.
Yeah, well, when hearing you talk about that, I was reminded.
那刚才听到你们在说的时候，我就想起了自己在大学学习的时候， 我那时候想到2个音乐节，我跟我的老师说啊，如果我能参加这个音乐节，如果能参加这个比赛的话，我的简历肯定会特别好。然后我的老师马上就阻止我了，然后说我再也不想听到你这么说。如果你去参加这个比赛的话，我其实是不管的。我觉得这个并不会让你觉得会更好。你输了这个比赛，我也不觉得你会不好。我从来没有见到他那么生气，我也蛮惊讶的。但这也给我上了很重要的一课，让我觉得我们要不断的告诉自己，那就是作为艺术家，作为音乐家，我们其实是对于学生来讲，对我们的观众来讲，都是冒险家。我们呢，一定要以身作则，让大家看到说，哦，你喜欢这个东西，很好，那我替你高兴，我也非常高兴能够看到你在这方面取得了进展或进步，取得了成功。但是这个跟我对你的评价没有直接的关系，那这也的确。
Doesn't matter. What do you mean I'm not better because I got it, or I'm not worse because I didn't get it? I'm like, no, you're not. And also go take a day off from practicing because you just practiced for 6 hours a day for, a year. What? Can I get that in writing? But I think showing this and showing that vulnerability also is a really important lesson for our students.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for saying that, and that actually connects really well to our next question. 那第二个问题也是和刚刚第一个问题是息息相关的，就是音乐。
The second question is related to the first, which is the motivation in music education. To work with students or parents or the audience, how do you really instill motivation?
Teach. 所以我想首先来请罗老师来讲一讲，您是怎么从您的课堂或者课程。
We'll start with listening. And how do you motivate children and students in your classes? Well, thank you, Beth.
Student-centric approach, no matter if you are a younger student or a older student, that's the same thing. 这个是老师的一个非常大的责任，就是说。
And so it is a very big responsibility of the teachers to really put students at the center. And students must be facilitated by the teachers. We need to think about how to create a conducive and favorable environment where students are supported in discovering their passion towards music. We need to ignite the motivation in students. I still remember very well that in the very beginning, my own son, or because I am a mother, and I'm also a music educator. When my son started, piano, he was very similar to, Brad and Freddie. And he, was presented music sheet by me. And at our home, well, we're conductors and we're musicians, and they never had a choice. They had to learn musical instruments. And once there was a teacher who really, installed or engineered a motivation for him, because he saw how his teacher was touring around the world, and that teacher is called Kimmel Gallagher, also a Juilliard graduate. And this person was touring around the world, 7 continents, and he went to, Tunisia, and to let the children know that they should not become terrorists who wear vest bombs. And then my son understood why he needs to learn piano and what he needs to express and what messages he can convey as a pianist. I think if the students can fundamentally answer the question of why they're doing it, I think that is the root of motivation, and that is the self-rewarding part. later my son actually joined a choir, and he performed a lot of activities which instilled a societal meaning into music. And Fred talked about how to have the societalness in music. I actually took the choir to an orphanage in Jilin, and
so they actually taught the orphans to sing sentence by sentence, and then they sang together after they've learned the song. They have felt that they are offering value. Music is influencing others, and this is one of the reasons why they could stick with music. It is not an easy path. So for adults, parents have that responsibility to ignite their children, to light them up so that they become truly self-motivated and love music. It is something that is extremely important. If you wanted to just score high in examination, if you wanted to flesh up your CV, you can't go for very long.
That's the same thing. 所以我经常遇到家长找我的时候呢，我说
So it's the same thing. Many parents would come to me and ask them, why do you want your children to learn music? They say, oh, I want my children to be a more learned and cultured person. I want them to, understand, appreciate music. But after a while, they say, do you have competitions they can join? Can they go and sit in some examinations where they can get certificates of different gradings? How are we going to be able to help them proceed in their learning journey so that they get into better schools? And so parents sometimes are not sincere. They say they want one thing for their children, but they actually want something else. And as a professional musician, as you pursue your dream for art and creativity, and there is a temptation in front of you where you are offered short-term benefits or profits, it would be a very difficult choice to make. But as you become yourself, as you grow into yourself, you must make the right choices. The people who have stood the temptation are those people whose parents and teachers have told them the right things when they started. Like Julia's teacher who said, I don't care, it will not make you better, it will not make you worse. And those are the things that are extremely important to the children. And so I believe this is the most important thing with motivating the children and the learners.
继续问一下Brad and
So
Eddie.
you talk about Tuset before you refer to what they said frequently in your sharing. So we would like to bring this question to Tuset Violin. How are you doing this? How are you bringing the community together with your work?
Actually, kind of tie on to that. I'll kind of just say what I experienced for motivation. I think it's always a topic that's brought up endlessly. I think there's two of them. That's most obvious to me. What I experience is the external motivation, also internal motivation. And it's neither one or the other. They kind of work together. An external one is pretty obvious. It's like, goal settings, what you want to achieve, what you think you want. Going through the process of that and working backwards, if I want to do a competition, if I want to do an audition, just for my own sake to improve, how am I going to work this out? So that's one part. Another one, internal, I think, which was very interesting to me, is it's more about learning about yourself and being okay with these kind of emotions you feel being a musician, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, we're human, we feel multiple emotions. And I think it's really important, let's say, tying back, the competition you didn't get in, you obviously feel frustrated, anger. I think those emotions, I think a lot of people, what I did was always trying to hide away, run away from them. Whereas I think it's really important to kind of just observe and look at that and go, oh, wow, this is what I'm feeling. And through that, I feel like this whole process makes it very enjoyable for me. I'm not saying I like feeling angry or feeling frustrated, but the whole process of kind of observing yourself, learning intrinsically who you are, what you're doing, what meaning you're going to place in this world, versus, I mean, in conjunction with what you're doing externally with the goals. Now, tying that, when we make content, in some ways, whether we know or not, we wanted to bring people into the world of classical music. I think early on, there was not many content creators, so to speak, for classical music. It was definitely unknown. You had to kind of put ourselves back in 2014, where in the classical music world, social media content was quite rare, right? It wasn't as easily accessible. But for us, we always felt that, as long as we can share who we are, I mean, we were pretty lucky in a sense that we quickly realized there were so many people around the world that shared the same values and that related to what we do. And in some ways that was kind of welcoming, heartwarming, and, inspired us to keep doing what we're doing and keep going. And that gave us a lot of confidence in doing what we're doing. So it's like, it's normal to feel certain ways when you go on stage, perform, and you don't feel good. As a violinist, sometimes the bow starts shaking because nerves are just rampant. But that's completely fine, completely normal. And before that, it's always, people always think, oh, that's not a good thing. But I think for us, we've learned that being okay with the uncomfortable and the uncertainty, actually sticking to what you love, usually yields better results, and an outcome that's more rewarding.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. The remaining 2 minutes we have on this question, I want to either ask Beth or Julia, whichever would like to answer. Basically, as teachers, what do you say, what do you do to engineer motivation into your students or the way you teach? Beth?
Well, I really liked what Julia and and Eddie were saying about, the shaking violin. It's the bow. It's okay. You're again, that honesty. You're coming through in your music, and the indeterminacy. That those things are what bring the student into owning the person owning the music that they're making, and that's what's important. And that's what's better than trying to make some kind of cookie cut or some kind of pattern of matching. So, and that will motivate them if it's really them, if they're not trying to be some perfect abstract, but they're making it their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. We're going to go forward to the third question, which is a bit more spicy. I will let Amy take the stage.
感谢 Serene。下面一个问题呢，是由音乐教育引申出来。
All right, the next question is something that extended from musical education. Have you experienced or witnessed music educators and learners who've experienced burnouts? So that question we would like to direct at Beth first. As you were teaching students, have you encountered student burnouts? Or perhaps when you are teaching and learning music, did you experience burnouts?
Of course, you have to make new. And if at first I'll do as a teacher, then go as a student. As a teacher, if you have a pattern and you're going to do that because that's what has to be done, you're talking about that which has to be done rather than about the student who you would like to learn. And when the student wants to learn, just in general, not even making them self-motivated, but a student wants to learn, because people change, and individuals change, and year after year, students change. And you have to change, and that changing is the newness, and that protects you from the burnout. So you're learning. You have to keep learning in new ways. And then you're actually seeing the student, and you're not trying to make the student someone they're not. So that has protected me from burnout. For the student, it's they're growing up as well, right? So they're learning how to be adults, and things can be overwhelming, and that can lead to burnout. And when I was a younger teacher, it was harder for me to accept maybe the student isn't going to learn it all perfectly. That's not the most important thing. having them have a positive experience and learning for them, that is the most important thing. And that will enable them when they have more time or when they're older to come back to something that they had a positive experience and want to learn more about that then. So again, addressing that individual where how they're doing rather than where you want them to be will help them not feel as overwhelmed and be able to learn more.
非常感谢 Beth 教授的回答。那么我还有个
Thank you
follow-up
very much, Beth, for that. I have a follow-up question. To adults who are busy in their lives, how can we ignite their passion for music? How do you heal yourself? How do you find reconciliation with yourself and continue to pursue music in adulthood? Does anyone want to take that question?
看到罗老师有什么话想说？
Ms. Law? The first question was regarding how adults can be attracted into music learning. Did I understand you correctly? I think I have created this whole curriculum facing adult learners, providing them with music competencies, and this is aimed at helping them because some adults, some of them parents of younger students, as they go into a certain stage of their life, they did not have the opportunity to learn music when they were young or when they were in their childhood, but now they are motivated, they're very keen, and they want to be able to appreciate music and want to coexist with the beauty of music. And the first thing I tell them is, because many people meet me for the first time and say, oh, I don't understand music, I can't appreciate it, but I really want to learn. And the first thing I say to them is that you should take those words out of your dictionary after the first lesson today, because understanding and appreciating music is an innate ability humans have. Even this comes earlier. It comes before language. It is a very natural way to understand and express yourself. And children, as soon as they were born, newborn infants have the ability to appreciate music. So we can help adults to walk into the beautiful world of music, and we would understand that they have already learned for many, many years. They have already formulated a way to learn for themselves in different professional fields. So we connect music to the things they already know, so that they formulate this connection between how they learn other things and how they learn music. For example, many Chinese people love to eat fine foods. We have Canton food, Sichuan food, and we have other different types of Chinese cuisine systems. And we will try to make an analogy between fine cuisine and music. For example, with Sichuan cuisine, we have the most typical dish, which is mapo tofu, and we would pick out something from a music collection, something that is most typical of that style. So we have, for example, piano, we have opera, we have choir, and we would pick out the creme de la creme of this type of music, and we help them to listen and appreciate that fine example of that genre of music. And as people listen to opera, for example, many Chinese audience would feel that they're very distant from opera. So we would actually show them video clips from blockbusters and show them how pieces of opera had been used in the movies. And we try to explain the relationship and why the director would choose that piece of particular opera to try and help with the narrative. And so that is actually very, very important. And it works very, very well. Each chapter of the music might have its own theme. So I would actually ask them to draw things as they listen to the different chapters of music. How can you distill the ideas from each of the chapter until you reach the ultimate climax? Some people already come in with a career already. Some people come in as a Chinese language teacher. Some people come in with a mature philosophical understanding of the world. And this actually helps them to understand music and come into the world of music. And it is my biggest hope that all adults who would like to pursue music and want to appreciate music, they should break off the walls they built for themselves in their hearts. The ability to appreciate and understand music is something that you're born with. There is no threshold, there is no gateway that you need to reach. I believe that's a wonderful answer and very much to the point. Two-set violin also have experiences that might resonate with what you have just said. They are evangelists of classical music, if I may say so. So you must have a lot of sort of experience along the way. This question comes from SKY Music Education, one of your followers. They want to understand, as someone who disseminates classical music, have you experienced burnouts? What made you stay and stick to it?
好，很好的问题。其实我觉得我本身有 burn out 过蛮多次，特别是大学有一段时间，我特别的严重，我那时候有整整一年没办法拉小提琴，然后我的 burn out 甚至是
For about a year, I could not play violin. When I was in college, that was the hardest time for me. So I've had a lot of burnouts, and back then I could not just force myself to play violin. My arms were hurting when I wanted to play violin. Well, my dad is very interested in psychology, and I've seen a lot of musicians around me who cannot continue the career in music because of burnout. I was very lucky because I could and I managed to rise above the burnouts I experienced. I don't want to take too much time, but I can think about 2 points relating to burnout. First,
burnout 这件事并不是需要
burnout itself should not be feared.
你 burnout 表示你很在乎。
It is not scary. It shows how much you care. You love it. And because of how much you value it, your mind is set on things that are a bit unhealthy relating to this passion. When you have burnout, please excuse yourself. You should not criticize yourself for having the burnout, because that is going to be a vicious cycle. It only amplifies the burnout. It makes it even scarier. Lots of athletes have experienced a burnout in their careers as well. How did I overcome it? 3 ways. First, very simple. Perhaps you're going to laugh at how dumb it is. However, it is not easy. You need to structure in. I think we also need to work harder on this. I think for Brett, well, last year or the year before, we worked too much and we just had even health problems. And so every once in a while, maybe once in 1 month or 3 months, we need to rest. Sorry, not structure in, but rest. And so rest is important. Second, I also learned that burnout happens because we're trying to escape. it is possible that we're trapped in a situation or even in a state of mind and we don't want to feel it. And so we try to escape in order not to feel it. And that's when addiction happens. For instance, addiction to video games, because that helps me escape from the discomfort that I have. And when pressure overwhelms me, I try to look at a different thing. Sometimes practice could be the practice, and that's something that we should be alerted about. And we are not practicing because we love music. Instead, we think our self-worth is not high enough. And we think once we get recognition of A and B and C, my self-worth will be fulfilled. That's just an example. And third way is more practical. Well, I think especially when it comes to a teacher, you should set a purpose or a goal for yourself and for your students that is not too hard to achieve, and nor should it be too easy. And without a cookie cutter approach, and without a close understanding of where the students are, the goals may not be fitting. If the student is having trouble with scale, but you ask the student to practice packing, and of course he or she is going to experience burnout because the goal is not realistic. And so 3 things that I can share now. Yeah, thank you very much for the very real sharings, very impressive, and I believe lots of us have benefited from your stories. And the last question will be left to Yang. Well, last question for this session. Actually, I'm most interested in this question. I think it's the most interesting of all questions. So, well, we know Julia and Beth taught in China before. Beth into set violin and have the understanding of Chinese music industry. So our question is on, there are problems and drawbacks of a discipline-based music education in the Chinese context. So what reforms are needed? How would you design music education programs in the Chinese K-12 education system? And so it's about design. So Julia, how would you design music education?
I think actually everything we're talking about is so related, right? Motivation, purpose, burnout, restructuring things, it's all very, very tied in together. For me, I would say differentiating more between discipline and motivation and looking for both of them. So not looking for just discipline, but looking for deep meaning, asking, what do you want with this? Why are you doing it? And I think the more we ask those questions, the more surprising answers we will get. Another big thing, bringing in more openness of vulnerability, more openness about discomfort, about uncertainty, about struggling, about failing, about burnout. There's so much pressure right now in the world and in China especially. And we look at now after COVID, so much is online. If it's online, you have more time to do more stuff, right? So for 20 hours a day, you can pack your day full of things and then sneak in 4 hours of sleep. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think getting away from the sense of more is always better, keeping in that time for vulnerability, the time for reflection, the time for resting. That's what I would say. And maybe another thing, the way that classical music stays relevant is when it's part of your culture. So I think in China, I would love to see more connection with things here, whether it's people from the past who came and helped introduce the music. Like there was this Italian missionary named Pedrini, and he came in 1711. He missed his boat, and so he was traveling for an extra 11 years. And then he came and he lived in China for 36 years in the Forbidden City and built harpsichords and helped the Kangxi Emperor learn harpsichord and wrote 12 violin sonatas and, you know, stuff like this. There are all of these really great details to find and how people were developing classical music in the 1900s, right? It's here, but it's all very kind of tucked away into specialized corners. Let's bring it into, classical music is the people that are doing it. So that's what I would say.
Nice, good. 好，那接下来，那这个问题 Tusa 你们要分开回答了，因为我特别想听到。
So to said, now I want to hear both of your ideas. So, Brett, let's start with you. If you were to design a music program for China, we've got a lot of followers in schools. So how would you design it? Brett, I don't know. I really don't know. It's a very difficult question. It's designing programs for schools. Well,
不知道，我的想法是 I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work. But I think a lot of it, intuitively straight away, I think it should come from the teachers and how they create a space for students to feel like they can open up, explore themselves, and also, you know, practice work, things like that. I think for sure one way it won't work is if everyone is stifled and they can't feel, you know, being able to speak up. But it can also go the other way. When it's too much of that, then there's not enough coherence. So I think really, from my experience, I think a great teacher can help you work at your own pace without feeling overwhelmed or burnout. But it's just enough to keep you on your toes, to keep going. And also what Eddie said, you know, it can't be too difficult or too easy, right? And I think a workspace like that would definitely contribute. I don't know if the outcome will be the one we want, but I do think that is something that might have some positive results, yeah.
我们感谢 Brad 给我们带来一个很大途径的一个演讲。
Thank you, Brad, for on that comment. We'll come back to Eddie later. Now I want to hear, Beth. Beth, you are definitely the veteran teacher here, and you are the most senior teacher. So how would you design music education program in China?
And thank you, Young, for sharing with me about the music education program in China in a very brief manner, some understanding. I think it's pulling together what we've been hearing all of us talk about, and the nuance of teaching, the art of teaching. The teaching is an art, and not too easy, not too hard. What's just right? That is the art, to sense how much is just right. And we also have a term in American pedagogy that we've talked about called flipping the classroom, to flip the classroom. So that, say you're teaching a large classroom song, maybe you'll have 4 songs and break them up into small groups, and a leader in each group learns the song first and teaches it. And then each group comes back sharing the song with the others and talking about, what did you like about that? What was fun for you? What was difficult? So that reflection gets built into the process of learning music as well. And the participation of the students in the classroom is optimized. You maximize it as much as you can. So I think that type of pedagogy can work in lots of different situations.
Nice. 好，接下来我们就想问一下罗老师，但是罗老师我要。
Well, next for Lucy, Miss Luo, there's a challenge for you because you understand Chinese education the best. And how would you implement, a music program? What are the elements you want to add, you want to remove, and what are the elements you want to highlight for students in music education? Okay, To answer your question, how to implement, music education, let's go back to the purpose of education. Well, between parents, students, and teachers and administrators, we need to understand, the common purpose we all have. We can't have completely inconsistent ideas about our purposes. Otherwise, the program is not going to be implementable. We need something executable on as the purpose of music education with that. And as the overarching goal, we can talk about innovation of pedagogy. We've discussed quite a lot about existing practices like, Julia said, how to escape and or stay away from it, learning music in isolation. And you mentioned K-12. We're talking about K-12, not a music college. So this is more about the foundation of music education. We need to think about a universal environment where music can be connected to science and humanities so that students can feel from what they learn that music is related to the world that they live in. It is not something that is, just one of these less important disciplines they have to study. And we were talking about music itself, but I think we should focus more on, within music education, what is missing. We talk about, core competencies, and I believe many of them can be achieved in music education.
Critical thinking, for example, today you talk to a music teacher and say, music can train people's logic thinking, can train people's critical thinking capabilities. The music teacher, him or herself, might feel a bit confused. But this is very important. We must train the trainer. So the faculty members would have enough training and enough support so they can understand how they can break the silo and connect music education to the rest of the liberal arts education. How can we go from teaching a child to sing to the ability to communicate and listen? How can we go from teaching a quartet and a choir to helping students to learn how to work as a part of a team? And we also need to look at the social feature of music. It is very beneficial to have classes. This is actually more beneficial than a one-on-one tuition, because you can help the student to feel that element of society, social responsibility, working as a member of a community, to communicate the ideas of equality and harmony through the joint learning of music. And now when we have those clear ideas, we will then focus on the assessment. The assessment must be in line with the purpose, because if we wanted to combine music education to the rest of liberal arts, and we test the students only on how well they can sing a song or play music instrument, then that's broken off. You must have an overall assessment system, a comprehensive one that does not focus only on the outcomes of music practice. And so we must have an alignment of the goals, the methodologies, and the assessment. Everything must be combined and unified. All right, thank you very much, Ms. Luo. We would like to give the floor to Eddie. We saw that you were talking between yourselves. We believe many audience members have taken out their notepad and wants to take notes of what you said. What class are you going to design for music education? Bye. I was thinking about that question. It's a very difficult question.
Expertise.
I don't have that expertise, I don't think, to provide a quality answer. I think everyone had spoken about this, many valid points. But I think I am probably the least experienced to answer that question. That's all right. That's all right. Use your imagination and talk to us about the question.
我想，可是我能想象的就是我在想，
Our imagination was,
哪一些音乐老师，我自己
I tried to think back to the music teachers I have had growing up.
重要的一点就是
A very important point was
这个 equation 里头是一个很重要的
that teachers played the most important role in that equation. Lucy talked about how we need to train the trainers, and I want to call back to a teacher I had in high school.
每天就脾气很
The teacher
然后你表演的时候他也不会很支持你，然后大家在那里
was not very supportive as you practice and you perform, and the students were, because of that, they were not less motivated. And there was one time when we had an Australian music orchestra event where young people get together and form a band.
大家都很爱的一个，那时候可能
At that time, there was a conductor whom was well loved. He was already in his 70s. He has the ability, a magical ability, to unite the young people around him. 6-hour-long rehearsals, but everyone was energetic and passionate, and he was able to make you feel safe enough to ask him stupid questions. And every time he would say something like,
是你们要问的那个问题，意思是说
the only stupid question is the question you didn't ask, which means that you can feel brave enough to ask that question. Don't be ashamed of not knowing.
怎么去让这个变成设计的
So how can that become the key to the designing of a curriculum? I don't know.
说了，就是
But I think what you have said,
点燃这些学生，
if the teachers can light the students up,
可以
light their passion for music up, so the students could feel passionate,
会想要自己
students would then want to do it themselves. They'll be keen to learn, they'll be motivated to pursue that dream. So if a teacher are able to make the students feel that, half the work is done.
But definitely a piece of a puzzle I think will relate. It's not just within their classroom, it's also what the students' relationship is with their parents, because that will also help. I think, I don't know, my intuition says it's something there that works in harmony with the student being in class. I don't know. I feel like it's both. It's a mutual thing, a teacher and parents.
That's true.
It's because one thing for sure is you also don't want the student to run to one side as a place to escape, as a point we made before. I think it needs to kind of all work together in order for a healthy education. How do we do it? I don't know. I just play violin. So, but
No,
I
你
think
们
that
其实已经知道很多，你们的很多课都可以拿到 K12的课里面。
No, actually, many of your classes can be directly transplanted into K-12 curriculum. Every minute around the world, you're actually trying to get people to guess where you are geographically. Which country were you in? What sort of cultures you have? That's real geography lessons. You teach the students, the children who learn music, what's the most important, not the fancy skills, but the things that you learn along the way. And this is very, very good examples. I can take out many of your videos and put it in my class. What was mentioned before, such as how we can teach the children, a lot of the content you've touched upon can actually be incorporated into K-12 education. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Luo, for that. I personally, as a student of College of Music, I have been learning a lot today, but because of the time constraint, we must call this panel to an end. We would like to thank you very much to our 5 panelists. Our directors and audience members have enjoyed it immensely and have gained a lot after listening to you. And we look forward to seeing and hearing more from all of you.